Hello. Welcome to the part of my day where I talk about 3 things about 3 people who've inspired me in the last 24, should we say 23 hours? Hi, I'm ZGALA, the Art Angel. This is the Head Hutt. Fantastic time of day out here. And I'm just sitting here electrocuting some mosquitoes and thinking about what inspires me lately, who's inspiring me, and why, because this is a practice that I'm cultivating in my own life and would love to encourage you to cultivate more of in your life as well. I think by reflecting on what is inspiring me, it helps me get more clear about what I want to emulate, what I appreciate. It's just, in general, a good practice. So if you're into it, I would love to know who is inspiring you and why, or what is inspiring you about who or what. I think, again, reflecting on it is a great practice for you, and then sharing it. We all gain when we share with each other what is inspiring us. So what came to mind as I sat here and reflected on what I'm going to say today, I try not to overthink it, and the first 3 that came to mind were my friend Bo, who I'm going to talk about, Eric Weissenstein. I might be mispronouncing his name. I think he's a physicist and a thinker and a guest on many podcasts, an intellectual, let's call him, and Chris Williamson, who is the host of the Modern Wisdom podcast, which is where I just was watching him and Eric Weissenstein have a conversation. So that's the backdrop for what I'm going to talk about. It's inspiring me. You could say mosquitoes are inspiring me to be a killer. Not very good at it yet, but I'm going to keep working on it. Let's go from back to front. Let's go in the reverse order that I introduced them and start off with Chris Williamson. His podcast, Modern Wisdom, I've been watching since about the time it first came on the scene, a couple of years maybe now. And I've watched it skyrocket to success. And so one of the ways that he inspires me is by his high, like he really pays a good attention to, he pays attention to those little important details, like using 4K video, like using really good lighting for him and his guests. And he has a background in dance club, bar, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not customer service, but anyway, events. And so you see that coming into the way that he produces or has produced the Modern Wisdom podcast. And I find that inspiring because it really inspires me to try to up-level some of the quality of my content, because he demonstrates how much those little things really do add up to better quality over the broader picture. And you might have noticed I'm all about off the cuff, unplanned, unedited, unscripted, and you know, raw and real. I think is great, and I will definitely keep doing that because it's just how I'm drawn. But I also try to soak in a little of the inspiration that I get from someone like Chris Williamson, who is still raw and authentic in his own way, while at the same time up-leveling those little details and bringing more of that to the table. So I'm inspired by that. I'm inspired by his courage, Chris Williamson, I'm still talking about, in coming from another country, starting a podcast, really moving from what was probably a fairly lucrative and successful by many accounts type of career in modeling, I think, and in events. I still can't think of the word I'm looking for. Success. and making that leap into podcasting and doing very well with it. I find that inspiring as well. I really am inspired by anyone who follows their own intuitive drive or their own drive to do something different and something more and give up some level of success. Not just like a gamble on bigger success, but really this willingness to step into the unknown and try to create something new or something different, something authentic. I always find that inspiring, and Chris Williamson has done a great job in that, so I admire that. And third way that he inspires me is by the diverse spectrum of guests that he has on. Eric Weissenstein, I may or may not be saying his name correctly, being one of those. And I've seen many great guests on Chris's podcast. And yeah, I admire all podcasters who are willing to talk to a wide variety of different types of guests about different types of subjects and really just go all in a real human-to-human conversation. That's a thing that I think all the best podcasters, or my favorites, are doing. And Chris Williamson definitely demonstrates that, where he's really tries to engage. He's bringing his own original thoughts. He's asking questions. He's listening to what's going on. It's a real-time exploration of humans having a conversation. I think we need more of that. So I'm inspired by Chris Williamson doing that. Eric Weissenstein, I'm still not sure I'm saying the name right, but he inspires me by his intelligence is one. He's just very intelligent, very thoughtful, very educated. All those things are sort of separate, and he brings them together in one basket where he is capable of discussing a wide variety of topics with a good foundation of knowledge, but also a relatively open mind where he's actually exploring. He's what I would consider a true scientist, where he's really looking for asking questions in the right way and exploring answers, even if you don't like the answer sometimes. And he's very willing to say he doesn't know or he doesn't have an answer, which I find refreshing and probably in short supply in some of those circles of intellectuals. So I admire that, his willingness to say he doesn't know or to not have the answer, his willingness to explore new answers from his own framework, which is pretty well informed. And then last but not least, I really admire that he goes places and says things that a lot of people are unwilling to dare to say, or places to go. And inherent in all of that is this ability to talk about the nuances of things. So it's not just one way or the other. There's nuances to things. And I think this is underappreciated, underdiscussed, underutilized in our modern age right now. So I really appreciate Eric keeping an aspect of that alive by bringing that to his conversations. And I've seen him in a number of different interviews. This one with Chris was just the most recent, and I'm not actually even done listening to it or killing all the mosquitoes. There's just an infinite supply, so I'll probably never get done with either of those things. Anyway, that's 3 ways that Eric Weissenstein inspires me, with his intellectual capacity and broad scope, with his ability and willingness to not know an answer and to explore what he doesn't know. And if I didn't already get at it, I don't think I did really. His bringing nuances, I know that's what I was saying. It's really related to his wanting to bring more nuances to the table, wanting to open up the discussion in places that in our modern way that things are going, it's like people seem to be losing that capacity to have an intellectual conversation where you steel man the other person's argument. So you're not just trying to cut people down for the sake of cutting them down. And he just had a beautiful little discussion as part of the interview I was listening to about criticism. And it reminded me of how in art school, when we did critiques, critique day was not about putting somebody down and making them feel bad, but about genuinely looking at what are the strengths and weaknesses of someone's work and bringing a fresh perspective to it. And so not to cut it down, but to enhance the parts that are good and working, and to point out the parts that could be improved from another perspective. And I think this is, again, an underappreciated, underutilized capacity that we humans have, and that we would be wise to bring more of back to the table. So I really appreciated the way he was articulating his view of criticism, and he really is combining that view with a level of civility, which is another thing that I've come to really, that I appreciate more and more in this life. Like, if we're going to keep evolving, keep surviving keep thriving as a species, I believe we do need to remember how to critique each other in a civil way. So again, not just cutting each other down, but looking for what are the strengths and weaknesses of any body of work, and how can we help each other enhance the strengths and see through the fallacies that we might be bringing to the table of our arguments, or in the case of art critiques, like see where something could be made better, while at the same time pointing out what's working with it. It's not just about, trying to compare. Critique shouldn't be just about cutting something down. It's about helping it grow. Like, you might think of like pruning, right? It's like looking for how to shape something in its best possible way. And I think a good critique helps do that, doesn't just try to cut something down. So I really, really appreciate Eric Weissenstein's ability to articulate that better than I did, and demonstrate that in his conversations. So last but not least, my friend Bo, who was struggling today and posted something online about that struggle. And then I sent him a private message just reminding him that I'm here as a friend, and, letting him know if he wanted to talk, that I was available. And he called me and we just talked it out. And this is something that I think more of us would benefit, or we would all benefit, if more of us developed this capacity to recognize when we need help, to recognize when we're not doing well, to admit it to ourselves and others, and then to accept help, or to take an uncomfortable step, or to try something new instead of the same old thing. So the conversation I had with my dear friend Bo was about, basically to drink more or to not drink more, because there's this very common habitual pattern of, when we don't know how to cope, many of us turn to our addictive habits, whether it's drinking or smoking or overeating or watching television or shopping. There's many, many coping strategies. Some are more harmful or less harmful than others, but in general, anytime we revert to that habitual pattern, it can be fine. Sometimes just surviving is, the best we can hope for, and I'm not trying to say we should never do that, but I am saying that as we're evolving as individuals and collectively, that it is very helpful to go from that step of recognizing that we're not doing well, or we need help, or we need an outside perspective or a shift in our own perspective, and then to go outside that comfort zone, disrupt that pattern that we've tried out so many times and doesn't work, and try something new. And it may, the thing of it is it takes an aspect of courage, because it often is uncomfortable. It often doesn't work perfectly the first or even the second or third time. And so I really am inspired by my friend who took a couple of those, that leap, those steps of first of all, just admitting and recognizing that he wasn't doing well and that he needed perhaps some outside influence or some help, or that he wasn't happy with the way he was managing things on his own. And then to be willing to consider disrupting that very familiar old coping strategy pattern of what I call the look what you made me do game, which we all play differently, but it's basically like getting upset at someone that's close to us and then either drinking more or eating more or yelling or, driving off in a huff, whatever it is. A lot of times it's a combination of those things. And I'm speaking from good experience. I'm not trying to, put that on anyone else. I recognize it in others only because I have it in myself very well ingrained. And I think most or all of the humans that I know do have this to some capacity or another. But I admire greatly when any of us, and today it was my friend Bo, who took that uncomfortable leap into pattern disruption, into the unknown, trying to find a better tool, a better strategy, a better way of handling something when it becomes obvious that the way we've been doing it isn't working. Perhaps you might be thinking that that's the case with my mosquito endeavors, although you can hear I'm getting some of them. They're just never ending. And then I would say a third way that I really am inspired by my friend Bo is how much he loves his wife. That was really the source or the bottom of a lot of the dysregulation that he was experiencing, was a disagreement with his new wife. I say new, but they're a little over a year married, I think. And that's classically an area of a marriage, I think, that people often struggle with, finding out that some of their past coping strategies aren't cutting it, aren't going to move them forward in the relationship. And and again, it takes the courage of looking for other strategies, and then combined with that is this very deep, passionate love and commitment to trying to find a way that works and make it a good relationship. And I really do find that inspiring. I think a lot of us, especially those of us with high trauma backgrounds, abuse in our past, might never dare to hope for something so good and to be willing to do the work to try to make something so good. And so, I find it very inspiring when anyone does that. And today I found it inspiring when my friend Bo was doing that. And he called me as a friend because I offered, and then, went, drove home while we were speaking to try to make a restart with his wife, who he had gotten in a pretty big verbal altercation with today. So I find that inspiring. Not all of us do the work to do that. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. It almost never goes just perfectly, but with practice it gets better. And the willingness to do that is a first step, is like the crucial step, really. So I was inspired by my friend Bo demonstrating all of that today. And there you have 3 ways that 3 people have inspired me today. I would love to know who is inspiring you and why and how. Because again, I will reiterate, I think when we share that with each other, we all gain something. Both you will gain something by taking a little pause to reflect on that, and I will gain something if you share that in the comments and I get to read it. And so will other people. So let's do it. Thanks for stopping by. Whatever else you choose to do, I thank you for being you. Thank you for letting me be me. I thank you if you like and subscribe. And if you do, hopefully I'll be seeing you soon. Ciao for now.